Good morning. It's July 10th, 2023. This is the Streets and Sanitation Committee. Present today are Councilman Hockett and Councilman Clay. Also present are Public Works Director Troy Kruger and City Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, along with Streets and Sanitation Supervisor Kelly Duffy. We are, 6 weeks away from retreats, the way it looks. So budget. I'll turn it over to you, Troy or Kelly.
It's time.
Past time.
No.
Huh?
No.
Yeah,
Just thought we'd get it in there to get started.
yeah, it's budget time.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna start out with ordinance 1057, which is a supplemental appropriation ordinance from water to sanitation for $100,000. So we can, we did not get any grant money, so we have to slide some money over so we can purchase the last piece of equipment to run our operation over there, which is a mini mini excavator, and is to load the truck so we can get the truck completely full and get it compacted, get it sent down the road. I know we've talked about wants and needs, and this is becoming a need more than a want. The piece of equipment that we're currently using is normally out at the landfill, and so we're having to run it back and forth across town, which is not a huge deal, but it is kind of a pain. But the biggest deal is which we knew going into this thing, that you do not use loaders with air-filled rubber tires when you're loading garbage, and we've already had 2 flats up there on that loader, so brand new tires on that loader, and we've had flats twice on it now, so about $250 every time we get a flat to have them come out and repair a flat tire. So that's what this is. Any questions? You'll see this on the next Monday.
Yes. To explain further in detail, Chandra, would you like to, or would you like me to?
No, I can. So in the 2023 budget that was approved, you approved to use $100,000 worth of water cash to move over to the general fund. Well, once we found out we no longer were receiving anything off the grant this year, and noting what expenses it is because of the air-filled tires and all of that, we got to looking at the budget. The general fund sales tax will come in $100,000 more than projected. So rather than moving that $100,000 from water to the general, it would be more beneficial if we move it from water to sanitation. So you're not changing the amount of expenses coming out of water, you're just changing where you're moving it to. You're changing, instead of moving it to the general fund, you're moving it to the sanitation fund. It would be just a generic transfer that we typically do. There has been no talk of repayment or anything like that. It's one public works department to another public works department. And I think that would be perfectly fine to utilize that. And I do think that our revenues in the general fund will make up for not needing the $100,000 from water. Between sales tax and property tax will be where I'm projecting it will be fine.
So, what I put in front of you guys this morning was a copy of the streets department, and it's got 21, 21, 22, 22, 23, and then what we've used, what we anticipate budgeting for 24. So Kelly and I have sat down with both departments, streets and sanitation. We've kind of looked at what we've spent so far this year and where we see ourselves by the end of the year, and then all the handwritten in numbers are what we anticipate spending in that department in 2024. Under 2024, there are the new personal services are in there. We sat with with Rhonda, and we figured those out, so those are figured in. Chandra's included, our expenses on, the plow truck comes off in 2024, but we have some other payments that'll be in the 2024 budget. Actually, they'll all be in 2024 budget. So, I don't know how you want to go about this, if they didn't just ask questions or just go down the line, or how you want to do that, but, I guess of note, one thing we were a little concerned about in the street department was, that's the only department, streets and sanitation are the only, that those guys are the only department that they cannot get a bump for anything. They don't get a spray bump, they don't get any kind of the water, wastewater bumps, they don't get bumps for anything. So, what we put in here for personal services, because the CDL is becoming a big deal, we put in a 2.5% bump for a Class B and a 5% bump for a Class A. So Class B, CDL, they can drive everything that we own except for, well, a Class B is a certain weight vehicle with tandem axle, no trailer, no nothing. It's so our dump trucks are a Class B. Our Vector truck is a Class B. We have quite a few pieces of equipment that are Class B. Class A is a semi, basically a semi tractor trailer combination. And if you have a Class A with the DOT, can't get it going this morning, physical, you can drive out of state. Otherwise, so we have, basically most of our guys are, we have a couple Class Bs, but we have some Class As. And those are your numbers.
The numbers that are in your books that were at your desk today do have the changed personal services in them. So, one thing that we looked at when Troy and Kelly came in and sat down with Rhonda, and then I came in after a while to really start looking at things too. There is, we had talked about splitting things equally, 50-50 between the departments that share employees.
You're referring to these books?
Yes. There is a huge difference in streets and sanitation employees versus water sewer employees versus parks and cemetery employees. The street sanitation employees, majority, probably 75-80% of what they do does have to do with streets. There's some, yes, recycle center, sanitation, landfill, yes, but neither of those facilities are open full-time. And so when we were looking at it, it did make the most sense to not split the wages equally between streets and sanitation, to leave it the way it was with the foreman out of sanitation and 2 part-time out of sanitation and the rest coming out of streets. So those books do show that information, as well as the potential for some bumps with the CDLs in there. Now, with those bumps for CDLs, that is a policy that council would have to approve. So if you don't approve that policy, which Paul and I would be bringing that up in personal services or personnel committee next week, which I believe Joe is coming to that meeting.
To which one?
Personnel.
I'll be there too.
Okay, perfect. So we will discuss that policy at that time, the bump policy. There's been a couple others throughout other departments that they've asked about potential bumps. So just looking into that policy as a whole. Now, if council does not approve that policy, then that would change some of these personal service numbers too. But what we've asked them to do is come in and truly give us a good accounting of what they would like to see. And then obviously, Joe, you've been here for 1 budget year. Jeremy loves the word no, so we can always cut them out. But this is, let's start with these numbers and then we can always move backwards. So we will have in personnel on Monday as well. We will also have each department split out for you as to how we came up with these numbers for personnel. No names attached to it, but salaries, longevity for some of the departments, that makes a difference. And then also potential bumps for each department and how many they foresee coming out. So What Troy handed out to you is what I had given him on Friday before we had worked out all the numbers. But your booklets do show the new worked out numbers after Kelly, Troy, and we all sat down and kind of came up with a game plan on that.
These sheets don't reflect that then?
These do not, just the
Gotcha.
booklets that were at your desk do.
The book that you have in front of us, is that keeping the personal services in that department? Because we were having, so,
So what that does is it puts your foreman wages in sanitation and then 2 part-time individuals in sanitation.
okay.
And then everyone else in those 2 departments
Yeah.
gets paid out of that. Because your
So-
foreman technically goes between both, but rather than trying to, you could say it's 2 full-time and two full-time employees, but for budget purposes, it was easier to make it that way.
Clarification, I think Joe, I know Jeremy, you were streets, weren't you? I can't remember if Joe, if you were.
I was streets,
We were,
I think.
earlier in the year after we got done, we were like having our discussions about snow removal, and you guys said, go out, go find another dump truck, park the other one.
Right.
We have not found one yet. So are we still gonna fund that out of this year's budget, or are we do we need to put that in next year's budget? That's a question. The other thing that is probably something that we probably need to talk about here, maybe definitely next year, but it could be in the conversation this year, is our street sweeper. We've had a lot of mechanical issues with the street sweeper. We know the truck. We know the dump trucks. I mean, they're just hard to find right now.
Yep.
Kelly's got some. He's found a couple. The problem is part of our process to get a hold of a dump truck is when it's a used truck, we have to come up with some sort of a bid spec, and then we have to go out for bids with it. We have to go through the whole process before we can, and then if we get a bid on it, ultimately we have to take that bid, but unless we can come up with a reason why not to. And then if we get all that done and that truck's still available, then we're able to purchase it, so. On a used truck, it's difficult, and we just haven't been able to find anything and get down and take a look at it and, make sure it's a decent piece of equipment before we buy it, but locally, we have not found anything.
It's
been really
$1 million,
difficult.
Jeremy.
Yeah, that would be nice,
Yeah, it would
wouldn't
be
it?
nice. But
Next year,
What is our contingency fund trending at currently? We haven't spent anything lately, have we?
All you've officially transferred out was 40,000 for the sirens, but there are several departments that have requested. You just haven't officially transferred anything because you're wanting to see where their budgets are closer to the end of the year.
What are they requesting?
I believe it's 161,000 that Streets is requesting so that they can do the entire mill and overlay budget. Because that came in a little bit more than 600, I think it came in at a 760,000-ish. So that would be 100, whatever that is, over 600. And then there have been a couple other departments in the general fund whose personal services, because of the 3.5 to 7, or 3.25 to 7.25, that affected them a few $1,000s. Not a lot, but enough. So right now, you're looking at, if you were to transfer all of that, you would have 100,000 remaining in contingency.
not a whole lot of change in the street budget other than we did bump chip seal back up. We're doing either this week or next week, we're gonna do a big crack sealing project. We're gonna crack seal all the streets that we've milled and overlaid so far. And some of the streets that we did 3 years ago are probably due for a chip seal after we get them crack sealed. So we bumped that back up to 50,000 from 25. We bumped crushing concrete up, back up.
Is that just kind of an every other year thing, kind of, you think, or you did, you didn't spend any in 22, we budgeted, but you didn't do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Wait,
And you don't have anything budgeted for crushing concrete this year, so it's more than every other.
Yeah, we took it out last year
Okay.
at their budget time. The chip seal will be kind of consistent here for the next couple of years because of all the new streets that we've overlaid. So that'll kind of stick around. If we do some concrete crushing, it'll probably be a one-time deal, and then we probably can, we'll have a adequate supply of that again where we won't need to do that again for a while. Chips we kind of like keep in stock, and today we have not purchased any chips for this year yet.
no,
So, probably get some chips start purchasing some of those here pretty quick, but kind of nice to try and find somebody that'll get, what we look for on the chips is to find a local company that'll grab chips for us on a backhaul. It's just a lot less expensive that way to just send them one way. But we kept, and I've contacted bituminous a couple of times now. Bill hasn't gotten back to me on what their status is, if they're gonna be in the area, if they'd be willing to come back and do some more streets for us. So I'll try and put a little more pressure on him. They'll be here, obviously be here this year, so, but I don't know what their future holds. They're pulling their plant out of Presho, is last I heard, so I don't know where they're going with it. Salem or something, I heard something like that. Quite a bit further than Presho.
How much is a new dump truck?
new,
New.
probably 250,000.
What did we pay for the last
I
one?
found,
Hot.
What did we pay for the last one? Was it 240?
I think
it's
so.
probably up a little higher than that. for
5
new.
years ago.
I found a couple older ones with, say, 100,000 miles or so on them for 100 to 150. It's kind of what the used ones are looking at. I mean, not buying some wore out truck. We gotta buy something, hopefully. But like Troy said, it's kind of hard to shop used if they're just not out there like you think they'd be. They're kind of, unless you want to go to Canada, there's quite a few in Canada, but
Bill? A lot of walleyes in Canada.
it's just trying to keep it closer to home, and
More reasonable, yeah.
it's hard. But we're still looking. Troy said about our tire issues, that's the same way. I kind of asked to maybe upgrade our dozer at the landfill. I mean, it's something just, I think maybe it will help with that. So I'm kind of getting prices there too, new and used, just to throw it out there, see if that's an option for us.
The first one of the
Yes, thank
season,
you.
first official.
Does it take 3 no's?
It does, it does.
I
It
think
really
it's gonna
does.
take about all our power to get you a dump truck, which you gotta have a dump truck. Joe?
Yes.
Yeah, we were on streets committee last year. We were just having issues with dump truck, that old white dump truck, and we decided the safety was overriding in committee and the mayor. We decided to pull the keys and park it. and they're therefore committed to replace it at some given point in time, which it's a necessity.
The
I
given
hate-
time is now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it is. Been trying to do it, told them to do it right away, and it hasn't happened, but we gotta get it. We have to.
Our dump truck fleet consists of two old white ones. I mean, they're Freightliners, I think. They're pretty old. They both have over 1 million miles on them. Like Jeremy said, the one we were having brake issues with it. It's what it's going to cost to get that truck safe to drive is not worth the money to, it's lived its life. Then we have 3 yellow ones, or 2 yellow ones.
2 yellows.
We have 2 yellow ones that are in good condition, and those are good trucks. They should last us a little. We bought 1 new Peterbilt. That's the one you see here in this, and then we have our what is that make of that orange one?
Little Freightliner.
That's a Freightliner too. That's a single axle truck that we put the sander in. And so when we park the one, they're also ironically our biggest trucks. They have the biggest biggest hauling capacity. Now, for snow removal, if we run into a situation like we ran into last year, the plan is which we'll be getting to in sanitation, is we have a hauling contract right now that we would like to purchase a truck to haul that trailer ourselves. And if we run into a big snow event next year, we can actually use that truck to haul snow off Main Street and our the streets that we have with parking areas where we bring everything to the middle. That truck, we can actually use that garbage truck to haul snow off the streets, so that should be a huge help. That's gonna be about.
If it's not sitting full with garbage when it snows, right?
Yeah, okay.
We'll have to be a little proactive. Well, we just
The
have.
trailer, you talking trailer?
Trailer, yes.
Yeah.
So if there's a big storm coming, we'll, either make sure we get it dumped before and we'll have to leave something on the floor, but make sure that trailer's available. But, it's an option for us to be able to, if we get into a big snow event like we had a couple of them last year, that is something we can use to haul snow with when we get in that kind of a pinch.
We could probably work something out with the county too if we needed to. I think they'd be willing to work with us about snow event. Commissioner Wilcox had mentioned it anyway.
Probably their turn.
In acquiring a used dump truck, is there any way to suspend the rules, bidding rules or whatever, so that we can move it? Sounds like our hands are tied. If we want to go, if one becomes available at some entity.
If it's
you
another
know,
government
around-
agency, yes, there's no bid laws then. If it's another government agency, Sourcewell, which is Minnesota State bid, that's available. HGAC, that's available. The other one that where we bought the trailer from, that's available. So there's a lot of places where it is available
They don't do-
outside of the bid laws.
They don't do used equipment.
Typically, yeah. The other government agencies, we have a federal site that we belong to, and then the South Dakota state site that we belong to. But if they're on those auction sites, I don't know that it's necessarily something that we're looking for. I know that if other cities are surplusing one, I always let these guys know if
Yeah.
it's any equipment out there that's available. So from one government agency to another, you're outside of
We
bid
could
laws as
move
well.
quickly and acquire it if we.
But the money's not in their budget, it's still in contingency, we'd still have to,
Right.
that takes time.
But it would help if you said, here's 100,000 or 150,000, that way, say we talk to, I've been talking to like Scott Mathis, local, trying to stay local a little bit too, and that's what he said too, it's hard to, how does he go get you a truck and then say, well, we don't have the money? I understand where he's at too,
It'll
and,
take a month and a half, 2 months to get
you
the
know,
money.
but if we could have a deal where you said, Troy, we got 100,000 set aside, find a truck, that would help out, I believe. If you guys could do that, I don't know.
It's not impossible to do it, it's just,
Yeah,
so the process would be if Kelly found a good used dump truck somewhere, we'd have to come up with a bid spec for it. So Paul and I'd have to sit down and write a bid spec, write up a bid spec according to the miles and the condition and all that good stuff. We'd have to advertise for 2 weeks to go through our whole bid process. At the end of that 2 weeks, and then we would have to, if they would be willing to do that, the party that has the truck, if they would be willing to submit a bid. Otherwise, if they don't submit a bid, nobody bids on it, then we're allowed to go out and find the most advantageous price, which would.
That
then
fits
we-
those bid specs that we wrote for that truck.
It's, then we're able to go shopping. But
Yeah.
not always, we tried it this winter a couple times and those trucks were, this winter, I mean, this whole last couple of years has been super tough to find equipment. I mean, just, if you had a dump truck or even any kind of a used equipment that was worth anything, it was not sticking around long. This fall would probably be a lot better time to try and find a dump truck, just because the construction season will be swinging down, and if it hasn't sold by the fall in the Midwest, it's probably not gonna sell till spring, because people don't wanna sit on some that they're not using, so it would be a lot easier process this fall.
So is it possible to put it on the agenda, Jody, as a discussion topic? So we can have the whole council and we can talk about it?
It's got to be an actionable item. You can put it on the agenda. There can be a first and a second. You can have your discussion and you can table or you can act. Anything can be on there, but it's got to be an actionable item that you're putting on there to discuss.
Well, let's put it on our next agenda to transfer $100,000 for contingency to the streets department. We can have our discussion, and then if there isn't council support, we can table it, or it'll vote down. That way, everybody can talk about, because I know Brad was on streets with me, now Joe's up to speed, but we need to get everybody else where they're at. So, and in my opinion, that's the best way to do it. Just get it there, we can talk about it from the public and everybody, and find out where everybody's feelings are, because for Joe and I to sit here and say, yeah, we think we're spinning our wheels until we know where everybody else is.
Yeah,
feeling.
you can ask for it to be placed on the agenda as an actionable item. At that point, you have the option to move forward,
Yeah.
decline,
Table.
or table. Yeah?
So if we do move forward and we would approve putting $100,000 for contingency into the street budget for a dump truck, there would have to be a caveat that it would only be spent for a dump truck. Not, oh yeah, hey, we got a little extra money here, let's just slide it's in our budget, so let's go somewhere else with it. That's not popular.
Oh, we need a dump truck.
Aware of that. Budget time is the worst time of the year. Do not like it.
Well, we want to look at sanitation.
So you mentioned you're thinking about us taking over the hall from here to Puckwan, is that what you're, is it? We're paying $8,000 a month to Puck, is that for the tipping fees and the hauling contract that we have? Or
No.
just the tipping fees?
You're paying to Engel Trucking, you're paying $426.26 per trip, and they're going about twice a week.
Yeah.
So, I think when I plugged it in, I think it's even on your packet in there, if they were to continue to do, what's 52 times 2, 104? If they were continuing to do 104 trips, I think it comes out to 43 something that's on your binders in there.
44 too.
So maybe, I don't have it in front of me. I'm
Gotcha.
sorry, I didn't bring it with me.
What are they paying per trip?
426.26, I do believe.
So, if we were to, if we were to just if we purchased my opinion, to contract that out again is not good business. We own the truck, we've looked at trucks, we get, for a good used, day cab, semi truck, right around that probably around $80,000 to $100,000. If you want to finance it for 5 years, that's going to be about $1,500 a month. 3 trips and you've spent $1,500 in a month. So we're way money ahead by,
That's not net, Troy.
pardon me?
That's not net expense, you have fuel, and guys' labor until, that, I would like to see apples to apples on that before we commit to it. You have your fuel costs, you got your guys' labor and all that, comes into it. And then, I'm not even talking about wear and tear on tires and trucks and whatever, but, yeah, you have your gross cost and then, you know what I'm saying.
The other thing is that would allow us to use that trailer for other things than just garbage. Right now we have a trailer that we don't have a vehicle in the fleet in our fleet that can hook up to that trailer and move it. If we have to move it out, if we have to go get new tires on it, if we have to do anything to it to get it serviced or whatever, we have to call somebody to have that trailer moved for us. So, yes, I will figure that out, try and put together a cost of owning the truck versus the service that we're currently being provided, and then the pros and cons to each.
Typically, you're better to buy something than rent, unless it's just, it doesn't work.
I gotta find these new numbers. The personal services, when we first figured this out, when they were gonna split the personal services between, we talked about this a little bit, and it really affected sanitation in a negative way. So the numbers that I came up with when Kelly and I put in all of our expenses, we were gonna be to the negative 212,000 before Chandra reworked the personal services, so I'd have to go through and add those all up. I didn't have those numbers on Friday, so I don't know what it affected, what did it come up to, what the difference was between the way we had it.
Quite a bit, so you went from 244 in salaries alone down to 120 in salaries, I do believe. So, it affects it around $150,000 total personal services.
So what are the people that are talking about getting put over there and what you're not getting put over there? Is it a true expense?
So right now you have, I believe, 8 full-time employees. Is it no. Let me see. I have to count on my fingers. Hold on. You have 6 full-time, 7 full-time, and 2 part-time between streets and sanitation. 7 full-time, 2 part-time. If you were to split them evenly across the board, 244, 702. The majority of those don't even step foot over onto sanitation or landfill.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I think it's important information for us, the council, and the public to know the real numbers of what sanitation's doing. The people that are working there, obviously Travis, I think he's there, our part-time guys are there. We have part-time guys out at the dump there. Troy, I'm sure some of your time, Kelly, some of your time in there. Those would be, in my opinion, probably the true personal service costs against the building. Now, if we're trying to relieve some pressure on the streets, yeah, I understand that. But we need to know what's happening in sanitation. Where are we trending? Are we losing money? Are we making money? That's important information for everybody at this table and the public to know.
Yep, absolutely. So what we did, rather than splitting 2 full-time employees, street sanitation, which we could do that if you would choose to, we just took the second highest paid person in those 2 departments, put all of their wages into sanitation, and then two part-time at the full capacity of 1040 a year. Between the 2, the landfill and the recycle center, none of them are putting in a full 1040. So I think that our personal services now, with what's in your book,
Oh, 1040 is a half of a year,
Yes.
2080.
Yep, 20 hours a
Yeah,
week.
you're speaking in code here,
I'm
1040.
sorry. 10
We talking
yeah.
about doing taxes, 1040
Yeah,
EZ, or
sorry.
where are we at here?
Nope, so
Half a year.
a full-time employee.
Schedule A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A full-time employee in the HR world is, by City of Winter standards, 2,080
Yep,
hours a year.
gotcha.
We consider a part-time employee, because South Dakota Retirement actually considers a part-time employee anything less than an average of 20 hours per week, per year. So we budgeted them at a full 1,040 hours. And that's as far as you can budget them to consider them part-time, no benefits in the City of Winter and technically the state. So with all of those plugged in, and 1/5 of your public works director wages coming out of there, because that is how you have instructed us to budget his wages, that is included in that 120,000 now out of personal services. So I do think, after sitting down with Rhonda and going through this, granted, there are some things that could probably be fine-tuned within that 120,000. It's all gonna depend on the CDLs, if you're gonna allow bumps for that, if it's only gonna be for new employees. Do we put in 5? Honestly, I think I took it out, because if you keep the current employees in there that are in there, there wouldn't be a large payout for if someone were to leave right now, because there's nobody in there. 2 part-time, 1 major full-time, there would be a small portion. If your public works director were to leave, there would be a small portion that would come out of there for paying out their benefits. But, I mean, and I hate to say that, but I want you guys to understand, these are all things that we have to consider. Do any of us assume that, and I'm using you because you're here, please understand that your public works director is going to leave and we're gonna have to pay out that? No. But we have to budget accordingly. I mean, even when we get audited, all of those questions come. What is your liability if your longevity employees are supposed to leave? So they want to see us budget those numbers in there. So all of that is considered into that personal services. The only thing that, and I have a little note written there to the side, and I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, but your insurance, your regular insurance is not in this, and I don't know why. I think we talked about it on Friday, and I just need to get you that number, what your regular insurance will be. That includes the insurance on the building, insurance on the trailer, insurance on the equipment at the landfill, and then the property insurance at the landfill as well. And then we do have our totes and dumpsters insured as well, since we own those, and that was, over $250,000. So those are individually insured as well.
So the splitting it between departments was not something that, I don't know where that got, we didn't find that out until we started budgeting, when I went and sat down with Rhonda, because that's not the way that we used to do it. So the way that sanitation's numbers were projected, the numbers that Jody came up with and I came up with, like for this whole project in itself, were with the personal services the way that they had always been done. So this splitting them, streets and sanitation, because they fall under the same supervisor, I guess. I don't know how they were splitting them out, but because they fall under the same supervisor, they were going to split out the personal services 50-50 between departments. And we, so now that we're into this budgeting process, we're seeing that maybe that's not a good idea for some departments. So like in sanitation, we went back to the way that we normally do it. That's something to talk to Shannon about. I don't know where they came up with this 50-50 split, but not the way that we did it in 2023, not the way that these numbers were projected back in 2022.
No, it's never been done that way. So the reason it came up, and I brought it up to multiple committees for the last couple weeks, it was experimental. Not ever saying that it had to be done that way, but we wanted to see what it would look like experimentally wise. Parks and cemetery, it literally makes no difference. They're paid out of the general fund, both of them. Doesn't make a difference there. Water sewer, you may see the same thing. Right now it is split 50-50. I don't know that we'll keep it that way. It's just, let's see how the budgets turn up. Because each of these enterprise funds do have their own separate revenue sources. So it came down to, and a lot of it came down to the water sewer departments this year of, it confused council why there was hardly any personal services coming out of sewer. Or, you know, what's going on? Why don't we have this? I got almost every month that I get a phone call from either the mayor or a council member asking, explain sewer, why is nothing coming out of it? The only thing that was coming out of it until about middle of April was 1/5 of your public works director's wages because we were short-staffed. Well, in everyone's mind, we were only short-staffed one person. Why is it affecting only this department? Well, we only have currently, and have for many years, one full-time person budgeted out of water with 1/5 of your public works directors. With our new software that we have with our payroll, we can easily tell it every payroll, this person gets split 5 ways, this person gets split 3 ways, 2 ways, however you want to do it. And so we thought, well, maybe that would make it easier to understand when you're short one person, it's gonna affect both departments. It's not just gonna be this one department that's affected. Let's look to see what that looks like. I have in no way stuck to splitting it 50-50, not in any way, shape, or form. The purpose of this was experimental to see if it worked. And obviously, we can see it doesn't work in streets and sanitation.
An exercise.
It's an exercise. Yep, we can absolutely go back to the way it's been done, but it was experimental.
I have a question, you kind of breezed past. You have the totes and dumpsters insured, you said.
Yes.
So obviously, everybody needs more insurance than they have and should buy more on a daily occurrence. The totes and dumpsters, I question why, when they're coming in on a truck and they're all in one place, they're probably covered by the people delivering them. Now our risk on the totes are spread out throughout the city. There's no reason to insure the totes. There's one in everybody's house, nothing's gonna happen to them. We may lose one, why we spend premium on that? Steel dumpsters, they ain't gonna get blown away. Probably realistically, nothing's gonna happen to the dumpsters. I think that's a wasteful spending on insurance premium, my opinion.
We don't have to insure them,
Yeah,
not by
I
any
don't,
means.
and maybe it's $100 a year, but nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, what would the cost be for that, you know?
I can get that breakdown for you.
Get the cost for that, if it's not worth it, it's not
The
worth
biggest
it.
reason that it was if something catastrophic were to happen. Then if we needed to get totes and dumpsters back into the city of Winter, we would have that insurance to help us with that. It's not a necessity.
Now, maybe the
but-
amount, because I'm sure we have some stored somewhere. I'd understand insuring them if we lost that building, those 100 or 200 totes or whatever. I could see that.
They'd probably be covered under the building's insurance.
Should be. Right.
Should be covered anyway.
Commercial's a different world.
I don't know insurance.
I don't know commercial
If it's not
insurance
attached to the
Insurance
building,
is
it's not
sleazy
covered by
business,
the
you never
building,
know about
per se.
as the building, but
Otherwise, you would have to insure it as,
Supplemental.
contents.
yeah, contents, and we don't have a ton of contents out there, so. And maybe that's what we need to do, is just up our contents to a certain portion.
But you could look at all that, and make a
Yeah.
determination.
That's what I'd say. Look at insuring the
Yeah.
contents, the totes that are stored wherever they're stored at, but
Sure.
what's spread around town, we don't need to spend
The
money.
problem is they're not stored in the building.
No, we got them in that reefer trailer right now, most of the cans. The dumpsters are outside.
Nothing's gonna hurt. All right, that's what I had. Again, more people need to buy more insurance daily.
Nothing like, nothing too big in the sanitation other than, you know, like to find and I'll get those numbers on what it costs to own a truck versus having the service provided. That was about the only change we saw in there for 2024. Personal services, get those numbers straightened out, have a good bottom figure number, but I'm looking like we're still gonna be to the negative about $50,000.
For year one,
Two.
year two,
Year two's looking that
2024.
way now, to be totally transparent. Now, when it comes to, I have a couple thoughts. We were declined by ANR on our recent grant application. They've asked us to reapply in January.
I did get a response back from them, by the way.
What
on
was your
Friday.
response?
So, I don't even know, it is, okay. So I did speak specifically to District 3 about this grant. And they did confirm pretty much everything that I already assumed. So once a year throughout the budget season, they are only given, the solid waste management program is given a specific set of funds. They do try to award as much as possible in January, but they do trickle some down, knowing that some projects are going to happen in the latter part of the year. Your best bet of being awarded when it's a big project like this is going to be in January, because that is when they have the majority of their funds. The other portion of that, so I asked the question, they had $96,000 remaining at the end of that meeting. Why couldn't they have given us some of that? If they would have given us a portion of that $96,000, we would not have been eligible to reapply in January. This is giving us a better shot of getting more money for this project. They think it's a great project. They think it can get funded in January. Obviously, any grant that you ever apply for, you're never guaranteed anything, but you have a much better shot in that January. As far as things we've already paid for, Brian said twice in his 22 years, has he ever seen something get reimbursed after it's been paid for, even though it was in this process. Reason being, when it comes down to grants, if you had the money to pay for it, you probably don't need a grant. So would the $200,000 that we would be paying in excess that we have a contract for the building, 100% that would be eligible. Would the potential truck be eligible? Yes. But as far as the totes and dumpsters, trailers, and the $450,000, we may as well exclude those, and that'll look better on our grant application as well. Because if we're trying
we
to
did
ask
have
for
the
money,
money to
we've
pay
already
for it, we
spent.
borrowed the money to pay for them.
Within an interfund department loan, so the
Still
city
low.
itself was able to afford it. That's what they look at.
That's a weird way to look at it. Because you robbed Peter to pay Paul. How does that justify it?
I tend to agree. So, one of the things that when we originally put these numbers together, we were looking at 2 trips, 1 week, 1 trip another also. So when I didn't get an answer from you guys on the 100,000 from transferring from water to general, shifting that to go from water to here for the excavator. We know the truck right now, the trailer is going up, what, 26,000 pounds per trip? And we can get that up to realistically, we can put about another 5,000 pounds on per load. That's maybe if we can push it to its max, and that's part of what's happening, and that's the need, is the right equipment to pack that trailer, pack it down. Hauling coming in close to what we'd budgeted for. I mean, we were close, just random numbers, but once you get into it, you have to reanalyze once you're there, and you got to figure out, okay, what's needs, what's wants. The biggest thing that I can see, that going back to the grant application, we're not going to institute citywide recycling. A lot of people are already taking their stuff out to the recycling center. But I think another good item to put on that grant would be these trailers that we've talked about, the recycling trailers. The more bulk that we pull out of these trucks that are collecting around the city of Winter and get it into recycling, the better off the city of Winter is going to be. Local community pulls in with a trailer and it's got, what, 4 cabinets in it? 4, and it's divided. I could see us putting 4 of those around town or more to allow people that want to recycle to go in, and instead of going out there, it might be easier to go to their area with their aluminum cans, their steel cans, their plastic. You might have to break that out into newspaper, plastic, aluminum.
Kind of makes it more usable, more public friendly, much like our grass pit. Because
I agree with you.
hitting the right time to get to the recycling center, missed it, just goes in the garbage.
Yep.
So then if you could go 24/7 and dump your recycling off, that'd be a lot like the grass pit. I like the idea.
Yeah,
The one thing your revenue numbers do not include, because we have not yet received a check for recycling, your revenue numbers do not include recycling revenue.
we don't know what that
Just-
revenue
We
is
don't know what
yet.
it'll be, because they take the trucking off of it, so.
It'll be fairly minimal in the
It's gonna
grand
be
scheme of the
minuscule,
budget.
right? It's gonna, compared to our budget as a whole, it's gonna be minuscule.
Agreed.
But every dollar helps, I understand that. But
Just
we
in
can't-
conversations, it might be as much as an 8% boost to our revenues. Troy was talking 40,000 a year, so minimum. So if we can get more out of there, out of the bulk, that's less that we're paying in
Right.
dumping
Less
fees
cost, more profit.
and more profit. I think you said 40,000 is what you said in
Yeah,
our
I just,
conversation.
I'm just going based off what, when we purchased the building, what there was in there, what was in that building for recyclable materials that was already bailed up, that we, that the county, we didn't see those funds, the county they got rid of those, that was part of the deal. But just based off what they got for their materials and what we're generating going forward, it looks like, it looks like it could be, it should probably be right around that $40,000 a year range. The number one deal is aluminum, hands down. That's the most sought after recyclable product that we have at that building. Cardboard second, the paper products third, and then all your plastics. We do have, right now, we're shipping it to Millennium in Sioux Falls, and we had a rep from that company come up and visit with us, and she indicated that, we can get a more consistent price if we sign a contract with them. So we've just kind of been, we haven't signed anything yet, but we've just kind of been seeing what we're gonna produce and where it's going, and we have not, there's a 45-day return on your, so when we ship them product, we don't see a check back for 45 days. We should see one really soon here, like in the next, like this week or the week, we should see one very, very, very shortly. And that'll give us a good indication of what each load is worth to us. And so far, since we took it over, we've shipped out a full load, and we just had another one. Travis just texted me with what went out this morning on another load. So we're kind of getting a feel for how much product we're gonna have on a monthly basis, and what it's gonna be worth when we get it there. So that'll give us a lot better number on what we can make off recyclable materials. And
That's
it's-
just an unknown revenue right now that we don't know.
But recyclable stuff is not something you can depend on. I mean, the aluminum's pretty consistent, but the cardboard, the paper, the plastics, there can be a demand for it, and then there can be, you might pay to get rid of it. But one thing that we're seeing, because we're so small, I think it probably is gonna be beneficial for us to sign some sort of a contract with Millennium, just because it locks in it locks us in on our pricing, so to speak, a little better, because if they know what they're getting for product, then it's easier for them to market it. And if they have signed contracts of people that are bringing in product, that's gonna be the first product to move, because she made note of that. When COVID was around, everyone was shutting down. And so a lot of these recycle plants were not in operation. The only people that she could guarantee product move was the people that she had contract with, because the plants that were taking the stuff knew exactly what they were gonna get from her. She knew exactly what she was gonna get from the public. And so they were the first ones to get taken care of. So I think as small as we are, that's probably a pretty good option for us.
She's gonna have that company will have a working history from us now too, from a couple shipments, which will help with the contract. We have a history, they have a history. We just gotta find out what our revenues will be on that side now that we're pushing those. But as far as a grant application, anything that we do, I would like to see something include those containers. Also, Jeremy, your analogy to the grass pit, I totally agree with. It's open to the public, they can go there 24/7. You know, you've got some locations around town, the ballpark, the other parks where, you know, we could put those and allow people. There've been a lot of questions from the public, are you ever gonna institute recycling? Well, I don't think we're gonna do that. Maybe we do in the future, I don't know, but,
Who knows what future councils will do?
In regards to the grant, the next application is due middle of January, and then they will meet the end of March. And I got that straight from South Dakota Wastewater Association. So if we were, and it sounds like everyone seems to be in agreement to reapply, it'll just look a little bit different, but so when we reapply, it'll be middle of January that we apply for it, not knowing if we receive anything until end of March.
it's one thing we've learned in the grant application, you never count chickens.
Yeah.
Also, you will see on the next claims list, 450,000 to Trick County, just so you are aware. Because Paul is going to be speaking to them about the closing procedure on that building now that we know where we're at with the 450,000 down payment. And then the contract also states that the city will pay for the closing costs. So you will see all of that.
That was nice of them to split that with us, like generally people do.
Council, would you allow to go on the agenda, the 100,000 from water to sanitation for that piece of equipment for discussion rather than to the general fund? Something that's,
Yep.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
the mini X right now is $92,000, correct?
Yep.
And we may have to pay a higher rate increase, or higher rate because of our timing, but it would cost us, I think, $4,600 more on the price, just because day late.
And then you also want to put on there to move 100,000 from contingency to streets for a used dump truck.
Correct.
Okay. And ultimately, what your motion would read, and understanding that you may end up tabling it, but the motion would be that it is to be used for equipment purchase.
Specifically a dump truck.
I think if I make
Not
a
another
motion, I
big
can
trash
say
or something.
specifically to purchase a dump truck, can't I?
Yeah.
Equipment purchase specifically a dump truck,
Yes.
only to be used for a dump truck.
Yes, yes, you guys can make that.
Yes, we can, and that would be a good thing.
Right, Kelly?
Yes, perfect.
No smoke and mirrors.
Nope.
All right, I gotta roll.
It is
Thank you.
9:01. We've been here 59 minutes. I think this has been good discussion. A lot of good numbers.
Kelly, so far you're the lucky guy, so you need to show up at all my other committee meetings, because basically all you gotta do is ask for money